Morning, it is 6 o'clock. It is Wednesday, the 19th of February. You're listening to BBC Radio Wales Breakfast with me, Claire Summers. 7:24 is the time. Good morning if you've just joined us. Claire Summers here on BBC Radio Wales Breakfast. Now, carers of terminally ill people are calling for an end to what they say are humiliating benefit reassessments for those with incurable and degenerative conditions. Two women with experience of caring for parents with progressive disorders started a petition which demands the Department of Work and Pensions ends the reassessment for PIPs. Personal independence payments helps with the extra cost of disabilities or long-term health conditions for people aged 16 and over. The campaign for My Brain petition has now had more than 362,000 signatures since it started last December. Emma Terranova-Davis is the founder of Campaign for My Brain and Catherine Roberts is the co-founder. Good morning, both.
Hi.
Let's talk to you, Catherine, first of all. Just bring our listeners an understanding of what this is like. You went through this firsthand because you cared for your dad. Just tell us what that was like with the pressure of having to have this form, this reassessment hanging over you.
Yeah, so I looked after my dad for 9 years on my own. I had no support from the services that were meant to support me. And it was just constant stress, really, all the time of having to worry about filling the forms out. When it came to filling in Dad's blue badge form, I was that stressed I couldn't even bear to do it, so I never actually applied for it. But it's just, you have to constantly get information from psychiatrists, speech and language, OT therapists to back up the fact that he was terminally ill and that he was actually going to die.
And you're actually having to prove how poorly he is?
Oh yeah, constantly, all the time.
And Emma, just tell us from your point of view, I mean, how did all of this start?
It's funny actually, because this is why. So as Catherine talks, it's just like a mirror image of what my family has been through in the last few years, because my mum's still alive and still battling Huntington's. And in 2018, we finally got continuing healthcare, which is NHS-funded care as opposed to social services, after a year-long battle to sort of prove that mum was eligible. And after that, I was just completely exhausted because I'd had to do so much to get it. And I'm a paramedic, and I remember thinking, how on earth are people supposed to get this that don't have the clinical knowledge I've got when I found it so hard? So I set up the campaign thinking it would just be a little Instagram account. And then Catherine got in contact and said her story was exactly the same as mine, but in 2012, and she said she can't believe that it's still happening. So Catherine said she wanted to come on board. And since then, we've been sort of really good friends ever since.
And Catherine, just explain to our listeners who don't know, I mean, how does the personal independence payment, how does it actually work?
So when Dad was ill, he had something called disability living allowance, which was similar. So he'd get some money towards his care or different things like that. And now I think because it's changed to personal independence, it's changed a bit. So Emma will probably be able to tell you a bit more about that.
Yeah, Emma, can you tell us more? I mean, in terms of you would like to see some change. I mean, I completely understand that, but there does need to be some form of assessment, doesn't there?
Yeah, definitely. And it's the PIP assessment now is essentially carried out by companies like ATOS, and it's a point scoring system. So you get points for daily living activities like preparing food, taking nutrition, managing your finances, mobility, washing and bathing. And those points then will make up sort of what part of the benefit you get. But the problem for me is with diseases like Huntington's or Parkinson's, there's two elements. The one is that we know they're going to get worse. So the reassessments they're so humiliating for the person. When we know they're going to get worse, they're not going to get better. They can't scientifically get better. And a lot of those people have had their benefits reduced after reassessment. I know it happens because this is what we do in our campaign. We advocate for people. And the other part of it is that with diseases like that, with neurological diseases, you have good days and bad days. So a snapshot assessment of a point scoring really isn't suitable, and especially for Huntington's, because Huntington's affects three elements of a person. It affects their mobility and their motor function. It affects their thinking and causes cognitive impairment. And then it causes psychiatric problems as well. So it's really, really common. Anybody with Huntington's in their family will be listening now and nodding that an assessor will come round and that their family will sit there and be on their best behaviour and say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. when actually in reality they can't. So one of the things they score about is preparing a meal. So my mum, if you'd stood there and said make a sandwich, she probably could, but if she was on her own, she wouldn't have thought to make herself a sandwich, she wouldn't have been safe eating it, and she wouldn't have been safe making it, but she probably would have carried out the task. So that's a sort of a bit of an example of how the one-size-fits-all assessment doesn't really work with some of these complex conditions.
Yeah, and Catherine, how did all the assessments affect your dad?
They used to stress him out. He'd have to go to Manchester for appointments. He couldn't face going out. He couldn't face the people coming to the house to do the assessments. It was horrible for him. He used to get anxious about it. He wouldn't cope very well at all, and then it would put extra stress on me as his carer.
And the fact that you were saying as well that it was easier not to fill out the form because it was too stressful says an awful lot.
Yeah, well, we didn't have the right support from social services that we should have had. They should have been helping us. They should have been advocating for us, and they weren't. And because the condition is so misunderstood, it's hard for them to give that support. They should still go and find out enough about it to be able to help families. And even now, I'm talking 9 years later, families are still going through the same thing that I was going through then, and things need to change.
Well, really good luck with the campaign. Thank you both very much for coming on and talking to us about it this morning. That's Emma Terranova-Davis, founder of Campaign for My Brain, and Catherine Roberts, co-founder. Thank you both very much indeed. We do have a statement from the Department for Work and Pensions. They say, we want to ensure that everyone receives the right level of support, and reviews play a vital part in this. They say they've introduced light touch reviews at the 10-year point for pensioners and those on the highest level of support whose needs are unlikely to improve. It's just gone 7:30. Good morning if you've just joined us. Let's bring